the S&P 500 is struggling heavily to sustain bullish, and this can be clearly seen through the movements on Wednesday on 18th of February and then on Friday 20th of February. What is so special about 18th of February and 20th of February? Well, if you notice, S&P 500 gave a closing above the Ichimoku cloud on 18th of February, then the next day on 19th of February it failed. Then again on 20th of February, it gave the closing above the Ichimoku cloud. However, it struggled on Thursday 19th of February and failed to give any closing or a movement above the Ichimoku cloud. So what does that mean? This means that the bullish side struggle, bullish side movement is risky, because so far S&P 500 has not given at least two successive daily closings above the Ichimoku cloud. And as long as this condition is there, the S&P 500 and the stock market will remain risky or will remain susceptible for a heavy fall. However, what will be the level? What will be the number that we can trust in order to see whether the S&P 500 will continue its bullish movement in the next week or if it will simply come down? So for that, the level is the 687X. And we have started to see its magic, its impact from the beginning, from Tuesday when the market opened. Any movement above the 687X is not sustainable, and we will see a fall, intraday fall again and again. And you can see that struggle on 18th of February. However, in my final update on the same day, I have advised my Patreon community members that we will be waiting for second consecutive closing on 19th of February, and if there comes no second consecutive closing above the Ichimoku cloud on 19th of February, then this will work, or this will be seen as a trap. That is why you can see that on Thursday it failed to move up significantly. It struggled within the 687X and remained bearish for the entire day. The low was 6833. So again, it was clear that any movement above 687X is not sustainable. Furthermore, there was a bearish slip on the lower level chart. This means that intraday there will be the possibility of a good fall. And exactly the same we have seen on Friday 20th of February, that before the press conference of the president, the S&P 500 was struggling to sustain at the 687X. And in my first update and then in the subsequent updates, I have repeatedly mentioned that 687X is the critical level. Any movement above 687X is unsustainable. It is not sustainable. And then we have seen that during the press conference of the president, the stock market moved up and sustained. However, maximum was 691X. 691X was supposed to be the maximum irrespective of anything. Now, question is that in this, the struggle, bullishness and the risk, okay, why we are going to consider the Nasdaq? What is the role of the Nasdaq here? Okay, and how the Nasdaq is going to define the range of 7,000 to 6,500 in the S&P 500. So for that, you need to understand that the Nasdaq is the only index that is trading actually in the bearish side, or was in the short-term bearish cycle. This is why only when the Nasdaq improves, the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones will be allowed to trade and remain bullish. But if the Nasdaq, if the Nasdaq remains bearish, okay, in that case S&P 500 will be forced, it will be compelled to come down. Now, how the Nasdaq will actually trigger the fall or the bullish movement in the S&P 500 and in the Dow Jones, or if there will be a counter movement through the S&P 500 into the Nasdaq or so, and what will be the chances for the 7,000 to happen in the coming week, okay, and the earnings of Nvidia in the coming week, how the earnings of Nvidia will trigger a heavy fall or the heavy bullish movement, okay, what will be the bullish levels, bullish side movement, bearish side conditions, all of that I am going to discuss in detail in this S&P 500 weekly technical analysis, which is for the week of February 23rd, means from February 23rd, which is Monday, to February 27th, that will be Friday. Now guys, let me tell you that I have divided this S&P 500 weekly technical analysis in two parts. The first part is the technical part. I will show you the chart of the S&P 500, Dow Jones and also the Nasdaq, okay, and I will cover the weekly chart, okay, and then the daily chart. And through the weekly and daily, we will see, okay, how much percentage wise the market is bullish on the in the long term and also in the short term, or if it is actually bearish. So the technical part is the first part. Second part is the probable movement. In the probable movement, I will tell you the bullish conditions, the bearish conditions, okay, the levels, numbers, zones, etc. Okay, like what will the chances for the 7,000 to happen, what will trigger the 7,000, or if there will be only fall and not the bullish movement. All of that in the probable movement section. So now at first I am going to start with the technical part. But guys, before that, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon. And if you want to get these daily precise updates of the S&P 500, Dow Jones, and in a manner to the entire market every day from Monday through Friday, then you can join my Patreon community. I have given the link in the description of the video and also in the comment section. So guys, this is the technical part, and here I will cover the S&P 500, Dow Jones and Nasdaq. Generally, I don't cover the Nasdaq, but this time the situation is like Nasdaq will actually tell us, okay, what the actual picture is. That is why I'll have to cover the Nasdaq also on the weekly and the daily chart. Okay, so the technical part I have divided into two sections, weekly chart and the daily chart. First, I will cover the weekly chart. Weekly chart means the long-term picture. So if you notice the weekly candle. Now again, this was the only closing within the cluster of the moving averages, the weekly closing. Okay, the last week, this was the only closing. And if you have watched the previous S&P 500 weekly technical analysis, then I have given the reference to this, the candle formed on the weekly candle 17th of November 2025. And here I mentioned that if there comes a second consecutive successive closing below the moving average, then this will trigger more fall. This will bring more bearishness in the market. This time it was little okay. However, the most important part is the closing above the moving average. There is no second consecutive closing below the moving average. Okay. Also, the closing of the candle is around the high of the candle. This indicates bullishness. Bullishness in a manner that it does not confirm a gap up open on Monday. No. It simply allows or confirms an initial or intraday bullish movement on Monday. That's it, but not a gap up open. Now let's see. Okay, the candle of the Dow Jones. This is the weekly candle of the Dow Jones. So far, okay, this was the only closing below the moving average. But as of now, Dow Jones is holding bullish. Okay, not a problem. But this is a weak bullish candle. Weak bullish candle of the Dow Jones. Okay, indicating, it is not indicating a gap up open. It is indicating a limited initial or intraday bullish movement. That's it. Now comes the Nasdaq. Okay, symbol is NDX, Nasdaq 100 index. We have seen one weekly closing, 17th of November, that weekly closing, okay, in the cluster of the moving averages, and this is common to the S&P 500, to the Dow Jones, okay, and to the Nasdaq. But what is uncommon? Uncommon is the last three candles. These three candles are within the cluster of the moving averages. Okay, in this manner, this candle is neutral for the Nasdaq, not a bullish or bearish. And this candle is not indicating an initial or intraday bullish movement or bearish movement. This candle is simply indicating that whatever will happen in the broader market, in the S&P 500, in the Dow Jones, and through the movement and the technicals of the daily chart of the Nasdaq itself will be followed. But technically, it will remain neutral. Okay, and under pressure. Okay, this means that overall, considering the weekly candles of the S&P 500, Dow Jones and Nasdaq, okay, now it is quite clear that the entire US stock market, because these are the three big indices, okay, this means that the entire US stock market is in a condition to try for some bullishness. Some bullishness is allowed, but absolute bullishness is not allowed, or so far the conditions for the absolute bullishness are not there. Okay, now this will be more clear through the technicals, because if the technicals allow the bullishness, then definitely there will be some. Okay, through the technicals, first the S&P 500, Through the technicals, S&P 500 is bullish through the moving averages, through the Ichimoku cloud, through the Bollinger Bands on the weekly chart, and no change in the MACD and the stochastic RSI. S&P 500 is bearish through the MACD and the stochastic RSI on the weekly chart, and this is not good. Why? Because this indicates bearish momentum and the pressure on the market. So in this manner, the S&P 500 again will remain 60% bullish on the weekly chart. Okay, now comes the Dow Jones. Well, Dow Jones is again, it is bullish through the Ichimoku cloud, Bollinger Bands and the moving averages on the weekly chart. And the Dow Jones is, okay, what is happening in the Dow Jones on the weekly chart? Okay, finally it has come into the condition. Okay, so Dow Jones is barely bullish through the MACD on the weekly chart. It is bullish, no doubt about that, but barely. This means that next week, and this is the weekly chart, okay, only and only if or when there comes heavy bullish candle, weekly bullish candle, heavy weekly bullish candles like more than 2% movement. As of now, Dow Jones is 49,600. Okay, means almost you can say like above 50,500. If the weekly closing by Friday is above 50,500 or 50,600, okay, more than that, then only there will be a heavy bullish candle, weekly bullish candle. Then only this crossover, which is like it is 99%, it is there. This crossover will not happen. Rather, the Dow Jones will sustain and will form a bullish slip and will continue its bullish movement. Okay, if there comes less than 2% bullish movement, this will turn bearish, right? However, for now, there is a little relief through the stochastic RSI. Stochastic RSI is giving very rough movement. So basically, as of now, as per the recent closing on Friday, okay, the technicals, the Dow Jones is 100% absolute bullish, but it is getting weak. Okay, it is getting weaker, right? If there comes, means this candle was like 2.7%, okay, for the week of 2nd of February. Okay, we need something like this heavy candle, so that the bearish crossover in the MACD can be avoided. Dow Jones is 100% bullish. Okay, let's see what is happening in the Nasdaq. Now comes the Nasdaq. In the Nasdaq, okay, you will see that well, Nasdaq is bullish only through the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly chart, but is bearish through the Bollinger Bands and is neutral through the moving averages on the weekly chart. Okay, weekly chart. Now you can clearly see the condition of the Nasdaq. Okay, through the other technical indicators, exactly the same. MACD is Nasdaq is bearish through the MACD and the stochastic RSI on the weekly chart. There is very heavy bearish pressure on Nasdaq. Okay, all of this indicates that the Nasdaq is bearish. Nasdaq is actually 60 or 65% bearish. This is the only index which is bearish. Otherwise, we can see Dow Jones is 100% bullish, although it is weak. Dow Jones is weak, and it is about to and we are going to see, okay, a bearish crossover in the MACD. Okay, but the S&P 500 is at least 60% bullish. Okay, but Nasdaq is 60% bearish. Okay, so now you can see clearly that there is a struggle. What? There is a struggle in the US stock market, a struggle to sustain and to hold bullish. Okay, so all of this indicates technically, okay, all of this indicates that in the long term, market is still holding bullish. Okay, but now it is weak, and also it is turning. It is also turning to what? Turning to neutral, to the neutral condition. Okay, now if the next week, if there comes a closing inside the cluster of the moving averages, weekly closing of the S&P 500, then S&P 500 will also turn 60% bearish. Once the S&P 500 turns 60% bearish, Nasdaq in that case will be it will be like 75% bearish. Okay, in that case the Dow Jones will also turn bearish. Sorry, not bearish, it will remain bullish, but in that case it will be like 60 to 70% bullish. For now it is 100%, but then it will be only 60 to 70% bullish overall. Then the market will start to change its direction. Now let's get the confirmation through the daily charts of the S&P 500, Dow Jones and the Nasdaq, okay, to see whether we are going to see any more bullish movement, okay, or heavy bullish movement in the coming week through the technicals, or if the fall will continue, or means the short-term bearish cycle. So guys, this is the daily chart. Daily chart means one candle represents one day, okay, not 1 week or 1 hour. Now, before I discuss the daily chart, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon. And so far, if you have liked this video, then hit like to appreciate, and your appreciation matters a lot. And if you want to get these daily precise updates of the S&P 500, Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and in a manner to the entire market every day from Monday through Friday, then you can join my Patreon community. I have given the link in the description of the video and also in the comment section. Now let's first discuss the daily candles. This is the daily candle of the S&P 500. If you notice, on Friday it's a very heavy bullish candle, and also the closing of the candle is above the boundary of the Ichimoku cloud and above the cluster of the moving averages. It is indicating heavy bullishness. However, it was still struggling in the bull side, okay, in the last 2 hours. That is why a gap up open, okay, it cannot be confirmed, it may or may not happen. However, there will be an initial or intraday bullish movement on Monday. Now let's see, okay, the daily candle of the Dow Jones. The daily candle of the Dow Jones is almost the same. The closing is above the moving averages, the cluster of the moving averages, okay, and is also the body is good. It is indicating an initial or intraday bullish movement on Monday. Okay, let's see the Nasdaq. The chart of the Nasdaq, if you see, well, there the candle is heavy. There is no open equal to low condition, but it is heavy. And the closing of the candle after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days is within the Ichimoku cloud. Okay, it is indicating some bullish sentiments and initial or intraday bullish movement. Okay, but is not heavy as compared to the Dow Jones or as compared to the S&P 500. The daily candle of the S&P 500 is really very heavy, okay, as compared to the Dow Jones or the Nasdaq. Now let's analyze the technical indicators to see, okay, if there is any scope for the bullish movement technically in the S&P 500 and in the Dow Jones and in the Nasdaq, or simply not. Okay, so let's analyze the technical indicators. First, the S&P 500. So now in terms of the technicals, S&P 500 is neutral through the moving averages on the daily chart. However, the S&P 500 is bearish through the Bollinger Bands on the daily chart and is bullish through the Ichimoku cloud on the daily chart. And in terms of the technicals, S&P 500 is still bearish through the MACD on the daily chart, but is bullish through the stochastic RSI on the daily chart. So now through these technical indicators, okay, we can clearly see a struggle to sustain. Okay, so in this manner, the S&P 500 is still 60% bearish. Okay, there will be a condition that if there comes another green candle and also this candle is above the Ichimoku cloud on Monday, then it will come into the neutral condition on the daily chart. And one more thing, guys, here that the S&P 500 closed above the Ichimoku cloud, okay, the moving averages and all of these things on Friday 20th of February at 6909.52. This is what I mentioned in the final update. If the S&P 500 closes above this mark, okay, or this number which is around 6,900, okay, which the S&P 500 did actually, because S&P 500 closed at 6909, okay, then this makes the SP 500 bullish in a manner that it will change the lower level technicals. However, to confirm if the market, if the S&P 500 will certainly sustain and trade bullish, we need a second daily consecutive closing above this mark or this level, okay, which is in the 689x, okay, on Monday, to ensure that there is no trap. Closing is very, very important, because if the closing is again within the Ichimoku cloud or below that mark, okay, in that case this will certainly act or work as a trap, okay, and then we will see the fall from here, and this time it will come down to the Ichimoku cloud and will exit in the bearish side of the Ichimoku cloud. Now the Dow Jones on the daily chart, the Dow Jones is more bullish, okay, something like what we have seen on the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, Dow Jones was 100% bullish, right? Now here on the daily chart, Dow Jones is bullish through the moving averages on the daily chart, and also the Bollinger Bands, and also the Ichimoku cloud, clearly bullish, okay, on the daily chart. Then the Dow Jones is bearish through the MACD. This is the only bearish factor, and is bearish, is still bearish through the stochastic RSI, okay, on the daily chart. So Dow Jones is bearish through the stochastic RSI on the daily chart. This means that the Dow Jones is 60%, 65% bullish, you can say, on the daily chart, okay. Now it is not about 60% or 65%, but what matters is that the Dow Jones is 100% bullish on the weekly chart and is also bullish on the daily chart. So Dow Jones is the only index which is actually holding its bullishness on the daily and the weekly chart. This is very, very important. Now let's see what is happening in the Nasdaq. Now for Nasdaq, it is clear that the Nasdaq is bearish through the Bollinger Bands on the daily chart, okay, is neutral through the neutral and bearish through the Ichimoku cloud on the daily chart, neutral and bearish through the moving averages on the daily chart, and is bearish through the MACD on the daily chart, and is clearly bullish. The only indicator which is indicating bullishness in the Nasdaq is the stochastic RSI, okay. So Nasdaq is it is bearish. Nasdaq, you will say, like, Nasdaq is 70% bearish. So Nasdaq is bearish on the weekly chart, and Nasdaq is bearish on the daily chart. Exactly opposite to what is in the Dow Jones. Dow Jones is bullish on the daily and the weekly chart. Okay. Now, so what does all of this means? That it is 60% bullish, one is neutral, one is 70% bearish. Okay, so it again mentions, or it again indicates the same thing. What? Pressure. Okay, pressure and struggle and weakness. And now clearly what we have seen, see, daily chart can change, okay, every 2 to 4 weeks, every 2-3 weeks, okay, daily charts can change. But on the weekly chart, okay, I have shown you this, the change is happening on the weekly chart, and the technicals are changing, but still someone, okay, somewhere is trying to keep it bullish, to keep the FOMO alive, to keep the FOMO in the market, so that people always think that whenever it comes down, it moves up. Okay, in this manner, they always think that it is not going to come down, and they will buy, and then someday, okay, there will be very heavy profit booking, something like what we have seen on 12th of February. And this can be clearly seen through the Nasdaq, okay, because Nasdaq is an early indicator of the bearishness and the bullishness to the entire market. Nasdaq is still trading bearish. When Nasdaq was trying to move up, trying to breach the Ichimoku cloud, was trying to sustain above the Ichimoku cloud in the bull side, it failed. It came down. Again, it came down. Okay, so Nasdaq is weak and is bearish, whereas S&P 500 and Dow Jones, okay, these indices are being pushed, okay, so heavily that the indices, okay, again, see, you can see the struggle here. On 18th of February, it barely closed above the Ichimoku cloud. Then on 20th of February, it closed above the Ichimoku cloud. However, on 18th, 19th and 20th of February, I have clearly mentioned that any movement above the 687x level is not sustainable. Okay, a very heavy struggle will be there. That is why we have seen S&P 500 again and again. Okay, 18th February, 19th February, 20th of February, again and again it came down, tested, retested the 687x level. Okay, it has again and again retested. So what does all of that indicate? That someone is trying to push to keep the FOMO, alive in the picture. Okay, so that when the FOMO is there, people will always think that any dip is an opportunity to buy, and then someday we will see a fall. People will still be buying when there will be a heavy fall. Okay, anyways, whatever is going to happen or whatever will happen in the entire US stock market, okay, I will keep you posted. I will keep you updated through the daily precise updates, which I give to my Patreon community members every day from Monday through Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I give the pre-market analysis before the open of the stock market. Then I give the first update once the first hourly candle forms. Then I give the midday update after 3 hours. Then I give the final update 2 hours before the closing of the stock market. In this manner, my Patreon community members are very well aware of the movement, level, numbers, and these things. And guys, it's not just about the daily precise updates, but I also give the opportunities in the premium stocks of the New York Stock Exchange, the ETFs. Okay, so I give 3030 to 5050, 30 to 50 opportunities in the premium stocks of the US stock market. And that's not all, because I also give the midweek update, and it's a video technical analysis generally given mid of the week, okay, or Wednesday. And here I discuss all of the bullish bearish movement, exact levels, numbers, zones, and the movement that is expected to happen, okay, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So guys, whenever you want to join my Patreon community in order to get all of these, then I have given the link in the description of the video and also in the comment section. And guys, when you follow that link, then you will see that this is my Patreon page, and here you will see this button which says membership options. And when you click on this button which says membership options, then you will see these 3 levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is the S&P 500 updates every day, as well as the midweek update video technical analysis. Level 2 is the S&P 500 updates and the opportunities. And here in this level, you will get the all midweek update video technical analysis and the daily precise updates of the S&P 500 every day from Monday through Friday, as well as the premium opportunities, 30 to 50 premium opportunities. And guys, this is level 3. In this level 3, whatever you are going to get here in this, the level 2 and level 1, by default it will be there. Okay, daily updates, premium opportunities, midweek update video technical analysis. And other than that, there will be a Zoom video meeting of 2 hours every month. Okay, in this the Zoom video meeting, I will teach you, I will share with you the strategy which has very high accuracy, then one premium hack, okay, which has very high accuracy, and one premium indicator which has very high accuracy in detail, and how to use, okay, to predict the bullish and the bearish movement, okay, or the immediate fall or the immediate rise. And guys, if you notice, many people have joined my Patreon community for last many days, weeks, months, years, and they are getting these daily precise updates as well as the stock market opportunities 30 to 50 and the midweek update video technical analysis, and they are very well aware of what is happening and what is going to happen. Okay, they have the numbers, levels, zones, and everything. So guys, whenever you want to join my Patreon community in order to get all of these, then I have given the link in the description of the video and also in the comment section. You can follow that link and you can join my Patreon community, and you are welcome. Now guys, I am going to discuss the second part of the agenda, and here I will give you the probable movement, means what is expected to happen in the S&P 500 in the coming week, including the Dow Jones and the Nasdaq in the week of February 23rd, means from February 23rd, which is Monday, to February 27th, that will be Friday. So guys, next week is blank. Blank means there is no data that is going to be released in the next week. However, a major event is going to happen in the next week. This event is the earnings of the Nvidia. Okay, the earnings will be released on February 25th after market hours, and its impact will be felt on the next day, February 26th, So February 25th is Wednesday, February 26th is Thursday. Okay, so its impact will be felt heavily on Thursday. Okay, and not just Thursday but also on Friday, the earnings of the Nvidia. Why? Because Nvidia is the prime in the S&P 500 and in the Nasdaq, right? Other than that, there is nothing okay, that is going to trigger anything like the data or so. So next week is actually blank. Okay, now blank week, what does that mean? This means that market, the S&P 500, okay, Dow Jones, Nasdaq will have to follow the technicals and the numbers. Okay, because there is no external factor. Yes, one external factor, and this will be the press conference or the comments from the president. Okay, one more thing, there is a possible strike on Iran, but again that will be the part of the press conference or the comments from the president. Okay, so we do not know what is going to happen. And this is the technical analysis of the stock market, okay, not the analysis of the conflict between the countries. Okay, but yes, what we know is that comments from the president or the press conference from the president, whether it is related to the tariffs, means he is going to impose tariffs, okay, or this the strike, okay, or this the conflict with the Iran, okay, both of these will act as the bearish triggers. Why? Because on Friday, the inflation data, the PCE and the core PCE inflation data, it was very bad. Very bad means the inflation has actually moved up rather than coming down, okay, or to sustain at the current levels. It has actually moved up, and this was something that the Feds, and this was something that even the Feds were not expecting. They were expecting a little upward movement, but not this much that was seen on Friday. All of the external factors are going to trigger the bearishness, not the bullishness. The only bullish factor will be the Nvidia, okay, the earnings of the Nvidia, okay, but that too only if Nvidia, just like always, okay, every quarter, if Nvidia posts better than expected earnings or so, then only this will be the bullishness. So by default, negative factors are already there. The data was already negative. If Nvidia also posts the negative this thing, then Nasdaq is already there to trigger the heavy fall in the entire US stock market. Okay. So well, this was about the data, okay, and the economics, and so now let's talk about the numbers. Okay, for the numbers, let's start with the Nasdaq. Okay. Not the Nasdaq, actually the S&P 500. Okay, so for the S&P 500, if you notice, what we know is that we need a second successive closing above the Ichimoku cloud, irrespective of anything. And even if it fails to give the closing above the Ichimoku cloud, then it must give the closing above the level, the mark that is there in the 689x, no matter what. It must be there. Okay, because if this does not happen, okay, then just like this one we have seen a fall, then we will see the fall, then there will not be any more bullishness. Okay, then we will see the fall, because if there comes any kind of fall or any kind of red candle, then what will happen to the Nasdaq? Nasdaq will, by default, it will give a closing below the Ichimoku cloud, means in the bearish side. This will further confirm that Nasdaq is going to continue. It is going to continue its short-term bearish cycle. Okay, short-term bearish cycle to what? At least to the 24,000 mark, at least to the 24,000. Okay, that will be there, and 24,000 from the all-time high of the Nasdaq will be around 8%, 8 to 9%. Okay, it will be that much, right? So Monday's closing is very important, very important, not just for the S&P 500 but also for the Nasdaq, also for the Dow Jones. Okay, even though Dow Jones will not be affected, but if S&P 500 gives a bearish closing or a closing inside the Ichimoku cloud or below the level or the mark, okay, and the Nasdaq closes below, okay, the Ichimoku cloud, then the Dow Jones will most likely will close within the cluster of the moving averages. What does that mean? That this will indicate the pressure and the struggle. When the pressure and the struggle is there, then by default it will have to fall, it will have to come down. Okay, So Dow Jones will be impacted indirectly, not directly but indirectly. It will remain bullish. Okay, fall will be there, but the fall will remain limited in that Dow Jones, right? So this is the case. Now when we can say that the S&P 500 is safe, okay, well, for the safety, 691x, okay, the level, the zone that is there in the 691x, okay, will tell us or will give us an idea, okay, or will give us a confirmation for the safety. One more thing, the lower level charts, the hourly charts are now bullish, okay, not 100% bullish, but are like 90% bullish, okay, that is supporting this, the bullishness. Fine, okay. Now the only factor here comes the 691x. Now we need all hourly closings above the 691x zone. This is a compulsion. This must happen. Okay, there is no A for but, okay, no this thing or that thing. No, it is a compulsion that it must happen, that S&P 500 must give all hourly closings from the first hour itself above the 691x. Only when that happens, then by the mid of the day or by the time I give the midday update, S&P 500 will be in a condition or in a position that most likely it can close above the Ichimoku cloud. Okay, bearish side will then be limited or restricted. Okay, limited restricted to what? Limited restricted to the 687x level. Okay, this is exactly the same level, okay, that has, you know, stopped the bullish side movement again and again, and S&P 500 was struggling heavily. And I have to mention this, the 687x, again and again in my updates, in all of my updates. Okay, and the S&P 500 has heavily respected. So a movement between 691x and 687x, perfectly fine, not a problem. The only problem is that it will trigger bearishness if the S&P 500 comes down to the 687x. That will be a bearish sign. All hourly closings must be above the 691x in the S&P 500. That will then ensure that the Dow Jones is giving the hourly closings above the cluster of the moving averages. Fine. Okay. And this will ensure that the Nasdaq is trading inside the Ichimoku cloud. Nasdaq is trading inside the Ichimoku cloud. Now there is one more thing. If somehow any of the index, either S&P 500 or Dow Jones or Nasdaq, any of the index somehow comes into the open equal to low condition, okay, and sustains in the open equal to low condition at least for 1 hour, okay, then this will also indicate, even if S&P 500 has not gained the 691x, but if it is S&P 500 is trading in the open equal to low condition. If not, then the Dow Jones, okay, see, the open equal to low condition of the Dow Jones, okay, it will supersede the open equal to low condition or any other bearish or bullish condition in the S&P 500 and in the Nasdaq. Okay, so if the open equal to low condition is seen in the Dow Jones, okay, then it will be a kind of blessing for the bulls, okay, because open equal to low condition in the Dow Jones, and that too a sustained, okay, means at least for the first hour, then it will give some idea, some confirmation that yes, now S&P 500, even though it is struggling at or around the 691x zone, but it can still sustain and close above the Ichimoku cloud or my level, okay, 689x, okay. And if this happens, okay, until I give the midday update, then most likely this situation will not change, and finally we will be getting the second closing. Okay, now what happens if all goes well? And one more thing, what is the open equal to low? Okay, so if you are new to my channel or if you are new to the technical analysis, okay, open equal to low condition means that immediately after open, a stock or an index moves up and open price is the low of the day. See, when we talk about the candle, okay, one candle has these four parts, okay. One is open, Okay, one is close, one is low, one is high. Okay, open, close, low, high. If you see this kind of candle, okay, what is so special about the candle? That generally a candle has 4 parts, okay, O, H, L, C, but this candle has only 3 parts. Okay, what? Open, okay, and closing and high. Only 3 parts. Where is the low? There is no low, because open is equal to the low. Immediately after open, it moved up. Okay. Anyways, this was only for the people, okay, who are new to the channel, or they do not have much knowledge about the technicals, or especially this thing. Okay. So now if Dow Jones comes into the open equal to low condition, then only we can trust. Okay, that too if the Dow Jones sustains at least for 1 hour, or by the time I give the midday update. Okay, now the condition for the bullishness, one more thing. Okay, there's the continuous bullishness. But guys, before that, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon. And so far, if you have liked this video, then please hit like to appreciate, and your appreciation matters a lot. And if you want to get these daily precise updates of the S&P 500, Dow Jones, and in a manner to the entire market every day from Monday through Friday, then you can join my Patreon community. I have given the link in the description of the video and also in the comment section. Now, once there comes a confirmation that S&P 500 is giving all hourly closings above the 691X, okay, or the Dow Jones is in the open equal to low condition, okay, any of these two conditions, if this is there on Monday, I'm talking about Monday because Monday is very, very important. If any of these conditions are there, okay, this means that most likely the S&P 500 is going to sustain and is going to close above the Ichimoku cloud. When it closes above the Ichimoku cloud, then by default it will close above my level, that is there in the 689X. Then where it will be heading to? Okay, so the next heavy resistance comes into the picture is the 695X. Okay, however, through the lower level charts, okay, there is a small zone, but this zone is heavy in between the 691X and the 695X. The 695X is the level, 691X is the zone. In between these two, there comes a small zone. Okay, S&P 500 will struggle when it try to move up. It will struggle heavily. Okay, so even if there is the condition of open equal to low, okay, confirmation, and all hourly closings are 691X, then also there is not like the free upward movement. Okay, like it is an open space. Okay, it is like moving up like a rocket or so. No, okay, there will be struggle in the bull side, right? What if there is no struggle? Let's say within the first hour, okay, S&P 500 moves up heavily. Just within the first hour, it moves up heavily. In that case, okay, there will be a problem. Problem is that it will disrespect the 691X zone. Okay. Number 2, there will be a heavy suspicion that why the market is being pushed up. Okay. This means that someone is trying to push the market up to create the FOMO. Okay. Now, a heavy bullish movement, sudden bullish movement, okay, comes when it comes only like president has said something which is positive, okay, or Nvidia has posted positive earnings. In that case, okay, we can understand that there is the sudden and the heavy push. But if none of these events are there, still the market S&P 500 is heavily bullish. This means it is not sustainable. In that case, we will not wait for the second closing above the Ichimoku cloud, but in that case, we will be waiting for at least the closing until Wednesday. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday means for 4 consecutive days, we will have to wait for the closing. And if out of these 4 days, if any of these days S&P 500 closes back into the Ichimoku cloud, then be ready for a heavy fall. Not just a fall, but a heavy fall, because in that case, this will be a trap. This will be a trap. Okay, and this will trigger FOMO, but this will be a trap, right? So this is how, okay, through the numbers, through the levels and the zones, okay, we can see and we can sense that trap, okay, or the manipulation, or these are things. So 691x is the technical compulsion. It should move up. Now one more thing, on Monday the S&P 500 should not, it must not focus on giving heavy bullish movement. Okay, rather it must focus on giving the bullish movement and to, sorry, not giving, but to sustain and hold above the Ichimoku cloud or above the 691x. Means even if there comes like 0.2% movement, very dull, means the momentum is very dull, okay, like 0.2%, 0.3% movement, perfectly fine, not a problem, as long as it is above 691x. S&P 500 is holding and is giving closings above the 691x. Why? Because if the technical condition is fulfilled, if there comes all closings above the 691x, and also if somehow there comes the daily closing above the 691x, this opens the 695x, and this also opens some, not absolute, but some possibility of the 7,000 to happen within the week. Okay, 695x will be there, fine, okay, but some possibility, no confirmation, but some possibility for the 7,000 to happen. Without the help of the Nvidia, favorable earnings from the Nvidia, or some favorable comments from the president, okay, on Iran or tariffs or so, okay, 7,000 is not possible. Technically it is not possible. Why it is technically not possible? Now comes the Nasdaq into the picture. Because same thing, whatever is happening in the S&P 500 here in the bull side, Nasdaq is lagging behind. There is a lag. S&P 500 is here in the bull side. Nasdaq is here in the bearish side. First, Nasdaq has to cover the distance. This, the Ichimoku cloud, a technical indicator. Okay, the body of the cloud itself is, or it act as a heavy resistance or the support for the market, right? Now in this case it is a resistance. Then comes the moving averages. So Nasdaq has to clear. Means even if the S&P 500 moves up, giving closings above the Ichimoku cloud, okay, we will see, okay, fine, we will say it is fine, it is bullish, it is going bullish. No, sir, it is not going bullish. Okay, it will not go bullish, okay, unless some conditions are fulfilled, at least some. What are some conditions? Moving averages, clear bullish crossover in the moving averages. Nasdaq must come to the bullish side in the Ichimoku cloud. There must come at least 2 consecutive closings above the Ichimoku cloud in the bull side. Okay, and also the MACD of the Nasdaq and the MACD of the S&P 500 on the daily chart must turn bullish. Okay, then only that will be the bullish condition. Okay, so whatever I'm saying like bullish as of now, this bullish movement is limited. This is not actually the continuous or this the long-term bullish movement. No, this bullish movement is a temporary bullish movement, is giving some relief to the market for some time. Okay, so market is buying some time. It is buying some time, okay, unless these conditions are fulfilled in the Dow Jones, in the Nasdaq, in the S&P 500. What about the Dow Jones? Okay, Dow Jones itself, okay, it is under heavy pressure because at most, okay, it can move up to or around the 50,500. Why? Because from the 50,000 to the 50,500, I've repeated this. Okay, so in last weekly technical analysis, I've repeated that Dow Jones will be okay, it will fall 100%. It will fall when it enters into the 50,000 and 50,500 range, and we have seen the heavy fall. Okay, and again the same thing will happen again. That is why I'm saying for 7,000 as of now is not into the picture for the S&P 500. For the 7,000 to happen, first these the basic conditions must be fulfilled in the bull side for the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Okay, and also the Dow Jones must move up into the zone and must sustain into the zone. What zone? 50,000 to 50,500. It must sustain, must give back-to-back closings, and then someday it must close above the 50,500 so that we can see or we can expect the 7,000 to happen in the S&P 500. Otherwise, this the 7,002, 7,002, which was also my calculated level. Okay, this will remain the all-time high for the S&P 500 as of now. This was the bullish condition. Okay, what will be the bearish condition? Well, the market on the daily chart is bearish. So there is no specific bearish condition. Okay, the only bearish condition here is that the Nasdaq must continue its bearish movement, must keep on giving the bearish closings. Okay, not the bearish closing, but the closings below the Ichimoku cloud, whether it is green or red doesn't matter, but the closings must be below the Ichimoku cloud or must be below the cluster of the moving averages. That's it. Okay, when it is there, then automatically the stochastic RSI will turn bearish. The fall, how long the fall will continue? Okay, unless it hits the absolute bottom, means oversold condition, the fall will continue. Now there is a problem because of this bullish movement, because of this the bullish movement, the oversold condition that was supposed to be happen on Tuesday 17th of February. If the S&P 500 would have gone bearish, that oversold condition, that saturation in the bearish side is not there. Okay, by giving the bullish movement, the S&P 500 has created more than enough room in the bearish side. Means if there comes continuous like 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 red candles, then also S&P 500 is not expected to hit the bottom, the oversold or the saturation. Okay, means the fall will be technically allowed. Now, for the fall to happen for the fall to happen, the bearish, first of all, S&P 500 will have to re-enter to the bearish. And for that to happen, it must re-enter to the Ichimoku cloud and must give the daily closings below, inside the Ichimoku cloud and below the cluster of the moving averages. Okay, then only we will say now that this is bearish, Nasdaq is bearish, Dow Jones will automatically it will come under pressure and will enter into the Ichimoku cloud. And I think for the Dow Jones, this will be happening after 20th of November 2025. Yes, 20th of November 2025. Okay, now what will happen when it comes into the bearish side? Okay, not the Nasdaq we know that 24,000 is at least. Okay, what about the S&P 500? Well, when the S&P 500 comes down, okay, first of all, 687x will tell us, okay, how soon we can expect the fall. So we need the closings, hourly closings, 4 hourly closings and the daily closings below the 687x, okay, level. This is my level. Okay, when that happens, then this will open the 6,800. Okay, 6,800. In between these two, there are two other levels. Okay, fine, S&P 500 has the reasons and has the confluence zone to sustain at those levels, but irrespective of anything, okay, it will come down to the 6,800. Okay, although there will be heavy probability that it will bounce back from the 6,800, okay, to the levels in between 687x and the 6,800. Okay, but when it comes down to the 6,800, test the 6,800, then this itself is more than sufficient, okay, that S&P 500 and the stock market is weak and we are going to see the fall. When there will be the fall, then what will actually hold the fall? 674x. Okay, this level will hold the fall. There is a small zone in the 674x. This zone will hold the fall. However, it does not confirm that the 674x means that there is, for example, that there is very heavy selling. Okay, let's say very heavy profit booking. Okay, after the formation of the trap, there is very heavy profit booking. It is coming down to the 674x. Okay, in that case, it can even lose the 674x. Then how the 674x will work? It will bounce back to the 674x. Okay, will sustain at the 674x. Most likely will close at or around, or not at around, but even above the 674x. Okay, the next day it will retest. For 1 to 2 days, it will remain in this condition. That is the 674x. A fall from 674x, okay, is possible to the 67 maximum up to the like the 671x. Okay, that the fall is possible. Before that, there is one level, okay, in between these two that itself is very heavy to hold the fall, and S&P 500 will then bounce back to the 674x. Okay, however, okay, it is not just about the 674x or the 6700 range, but it is about the 6500. Okay, why and how the 6500 again? Okay, in last 2 or 3 S&P 500 weekly technical analysis, I have repeated the same thing. Okay, when the short term bearish cycle is there into this, when the short term bearish cycle is there, okay, then in the 6600 we have a heavy support zone. Fine, that support zone will hold the fall. Fine, but it will hold the fall only for 1 or 2 days or maximum 3 days, or S&P 500 can even bounce from the zone into the 6700. But what will happen? That will help the S&P 500 to create a pattern. Okay, what pattern? Okay, this kind of pattern means a staircase pattern. When this pattern will be there, then we will see fall. Okay, means the lower highs are there, short and fall, short and fall, short and fall. Okay, that will be there in this manner. Now, when it comes into the 6500, what is so special about the 6500? Okay, the levels, zones themselves are there. Okay, other than that, the monthly chart, there are the moving averages in the 6500. When S&P 500 will be coming down to the 6500, this means that S&P 500 has already lost around 7 to 8%, and it is now heading to the 10% mark. Okay, now whenever it is about to reach the 10% mark, okay, S&P 500 means the market movers, okay, they will not allow this to happen. Not actually in this the direct fall. They will then push, okay, and then will help the S&P 500 to enter into the short-term bullish cycle. Okay, and when the short-term bullish cycle is complete, then only there will be the fall for more than 10%, means the correction, right? That will be the case. Okay, but now for now, okay, what we know is that S&P 500 is going to, okay, this is the bearish side in the S&P 500. Okay, the fall in the S&P 500 will still remain limited. Okay, and also in the Dow, or also in the Nasdaq will remain limited. Why? Because of the Dow Jones. Because for the heavy fall to happen in the entire US stock market, Dow Jones must support the fall, else the fall will remain limited. When I say support, Dow Jones must come down. Moving averages of the Dow Jones on the daily chart must change, must turn to bearish. Okay, because that condition is not there. It is still holding bullish. It must change to bearish crossover. It must enter into the Ichimoku cloud and then come out of the bearish side of the Ichimoku cloud, means like you can say 47,500. Below 47,500, all of these conditions will be fulfilled. When that happens, then we can expect more than 10% fall, or the scenario for the correction that will be there. This means that Monday, as early as on Monday, we will get some kind of confirmation, some kind of clarity on the bullish and the bearish movement. Okay, in my first update, okay, I will mention what we are expecting to happen, and then by the time I give the midday update, okay, it will be very much clear where it will be heading to. Everything will remain as is, okay, until Thursday, means Wednesday. Okay, or Thursday you can say, because Wednesday after market hours, Nvidia will post the earnings, and the impact of the earnings will be felt on Thursday and then on Friday. Okay, then we will see what happens, whether the market managed to sustain or not. If it managed to sustain, then is there any crossover in the moving averages and in the MACD or not? If not, then it will continue its the short-term bearish cycle. So guys, once again, hit like to appreciate if you have liked this video, and your appreciation matters a lot. And if you want to get these daily precise updates of the S&P 500, Dow Jones in a manner to the entire stock market every day from Monday through Friday, then you can join my Patreon community. I have given the link in the description of the video and also in the comment section. And guys, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon. And guys, if you have any questions that you want to ask, then please feel free to ask your questions through the comment section.